How long does it take from the time you put it in park to time we're completely set up?
Like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I should.
It's a good thing.
Tent setup took like 45 minutes if we were in an emergency.
Yeah.
And that sucks. So we're gonna drop the awning down. Do this one person, which anyone should be able to do it on their own. This one though has happened to already have a bit of a failure. You'll notice there should be
A strap.
a third strap. That no longer exists. So let's do this.
You don't want help?
No, because I want to be able to see like how cumbersome this is for one person. Really, all this should be relatively easy for one person. Like, it's not a huge camper. It's not meant for like a whole group of people. So, yeah. One part we'll start with.
Oh yeah.
This piece had already broken before.
The stint.
So I have stinted it, broke right about here. So it would be ideal to have the stent further down, but I need enough space for...
That's when it broke in Santa Cruz, right?
One thing to come look at. This guy's good. Be careful here because all this is bent up from this failing. There's a rivet that's gone. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful construction here. So that slides back in there. So, start with this side. Thing wasn't going in a landfill soon, I'd probably be a little more careful. But it is what it is.
Oh, make sure you do the like tilted minimum of 12 to 24 recommended inches so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, we just leave that at this point. Let's see how much fun this is. Can you see? Pull up. Oh yeah. Alright. What? Well, yeah, one person can do it, but it is cumbersome. And if you were older, maybe handicapped, something like that, it's not going to be super easy.
Or even much shorter.
I mean, I'm pretty short.
Oh, that's what I mean. Like, if you were any shorter than that, it would be quite difficult.
Yeah. If I was more height challenged, it would be even more difficult. But you can see up in here where everything kind of bent up. So when it comes for the awning itself, yeah, there's a backing plate behind here that has some big bolts that bolt into the roof rack. But this body to that backing plate is only held in place by these 5 little rivets. And these rivets also sandwich in these straps. This one's failed. We got no strap. We have no support. It's what was included. It's what we're using for now. We'll get a 270 OVS passenger side awning when I can afford it, but they're $850. But it will replace this and the rear one, and deployment will be like a minute versus whatever. It's not too big though, so it doesn't, you're not putting a lot of demand on it. But
Right.
for something like this, oh yeah. And so the way they design these little ends here, there's nothing really retaining them. There's a couple little little divots in the steel to hold it, but like this pretty much just wants to go in every time and you have to fish it out. There's a trick you could do with some washers, but I'm not doing it.
No, not
not
when this
worth
is
the
gonna
time.
come off of it, and we're gonna
This is likely
replace
the
this
last
anyway.
real time we're gonna use these awnings. I almost bought the new awning before we left, but
This is just an overnight.
so this is fun. This isn't like the simplest thing to get out sometimes.
Meanwhile, the shower from OVS was one-handed for me.
Bam! Huh? It's so quick, so it's ready to go. Shouldn't have to use a tool to get stuff out. But it is what it is. I'm sure these things are $50 or so.
I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't pay $50 for it. I would save my $50 for a much better system.
Yeah. Alright, so let's put this guy in. Well, yeah, it works. It's just, it's not super smooth or super easy.
Not at all intuitive.
No, and this is, I have done this, probably a dozen times now. So like, I know what I'm doing. First time is not gonna be quick and easy. So I was hooking up the 30 amp service to the camper and I noticed a little loose here.
That's great.
Yeah, so let's notice because it goes just straight into fiberglass.
Oh, it doesn't really tighten.
No, it won't tighten because there's fiberglass and there's no backing. So I can make sure these other 3 are taut, but that guard there, like literally just it's been stripped out
You can
long
hear
ago. So got here, we had no issues with the back door.
Not this
For people
time.
who are gonna buy this, make sure that when you go to close it, just make sure that you physically pull the lever, lock and push it. It's in there good, but if you don't do that, sometimes it'll only lock on the bottom. It's actually doing really good right now.
Oh, good.
On the trip before.
I'm glad it's temperamental though.
Well, it's good to lubricate right here because this is what gets kind of stuck. I know people have said to like remove the striker plate. You can, but you don't need to. It's really just a matter of being mindful that it's locked.
We also have those.
This has been the most helpful thing.
Yes.
This guy here for babies, because I'm a baby. So for the refrigerator though, this fridge, yes, it's 12 volt. Yes, you look at it, you're like, oh, sweet. It's probably not the best for driving. We only drove like 70 miles, nothing off road. I guarantee stuff is gonna want to fall out.
There it goes.
So yeah, this does not stay.
No, it just like is meant for things to fly out.
Because we're usually on the road more. This wasn't so bad as far as things moving around. But
Our last trip was 2,700 miles.
yeah, this was 7. So this wasn't that
7-0.
bad. But actually,
I also have to mention that we spent 9 days in this thing.
yes.
So we were essentially living out of it during our trip.
We did. We lived out of this for
It
9
wasn't
days.
just a simple overnight
Not
like
a
this.
quick-
This is. We did add this really cute backsplash to
Yeah,
it. It's really cute. I like it.
it is. It works pretty well for it. It adds a touch. I like it.
A touch. This like comes loose sometimes, like it's too long. You have to like physically shove it up in there for it to stay.
But overall, it's pretty
Otherwise it
Pretty good
rattles around.
good. We did have to. I had to go
You
in
had to
here.
go and re-Teflon things in
Well,
here.
There's an O-ring here and an O-ring here. This is the actual P trap. It's not a P, but it has like a membrane in it to keep things from crawling back up in. Smart. But this seal right here, sometimes because water does sit in here, this was leaking, and I'm actually
Yes.
wondering if
It leaked down onto the dog food we had down here last trip.
There's still water. It's still leaking actually.
Oh, that's fun.
So let's see.
Well,
Is
how
there
does that
water
work?
in here?
No. You had to re-Teflon tape it. So.
I did it twice actually, but it might still be. It might not.
There is. No, I see water.
But this was just the
Alright.
shower thing was in there too. So we will see on this trip if this thing is still leaking when everything is all.
I do like the shower attachment outside. It's super easy for cleaning off pretty much anything, but we have dogs, yeah, and anytime their feet
They
get dirty,
we gotta plug them back up. It's nice.
it's super easy.
So yeah, the shower's pretty good.
That's a
It's
shower
nice.
we purchased.
This shower, yes, we bought. This is OVS. This is what we'll replace the awnings with the same brand.
Okay.
So there's a non-pressurized fill that we fill for the 38-gallon tank before, but there is actually, no one ever really talks about this, there is a hookup for city water. So if you have a pressurized hookup somewhere, you can hook up to this and it will run pressurized.
Nice.
It's a little vent here though. It's potable. I don't know how much I drink out of it, but we usually just bring drinking water in addition to.
Well, yeah, that's a thing in Arizona.
But it's.
But if you have nice city water, like,
Hey man, you got 38 gallons. Well, 43 if you got the newer ones, but this has the 38, and you can't get that even close with anything in this size range.
no.
So, big thing about this stove, yes, it's gas stove, seems pretty nice, but okay, you go to use it, turn it on, there's no igniter. Like, I buy a Coleman camp stove, it's got an igniter. Why does this not have an igniter? So instead,
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just being
I mean, maybe
really
I'm being
cautious.
picky, but I mean like everything.
Well, maybe
is-
if something bumps into it, if it rattles
But
around.
there's got to be gas flowing to it, and it's off, and you turn off the propane tank at the front.
Okay.
So like, there should be an igniter. Like, why do I have to like?
Yeah, no,
do
we need to get
this?
one of those
I
long.
need to get a longer one, but
Yeah.
like, I shouldn't have to do that in the first place. This should just have an igniter.
Right.
Maybe other models do, maybe this one doesn't. Supply chain, whatever. Annoying.
To 140. Again, not a huge number, but it
Jerky lady got it going.
This morning we had an incident yet again with now the completely defunct awning. On this side, it flipped over on itself and twisted out of the joints. This is after our last use with it, that it completely collapsed under light drizzling rain. So both legs are now completely useless, and we had to use our mallet just to get it back in place to be able to get it back in the bag. It will be coming off as soon as we come home. I think that's a bit ridiculous for only the second time using the actual awning. What happened?
Literally.
It flipped over.
Without this.
Yeah.
Because it's just too big for the strength of the components.
The back seems to be completely fine. And that isn't due because of its size. It's small enough that the components, like the legs and the joints, can be held up by its small size. The side awning is much larger and it has the same exact components and legs. So the math isn't mathing. I know that ROG does not produce these, but in my honest opinion, I would rather not have even had awnings than to have this happen. It is pretty chilly this morning, but the wind is literally only 5 miles an hour, so we'll be purchasing a OVS, which is what we have for our shower room. For the other side, we'll be getting a 270 OVS awning to replace the awning that we have used twice.
So, just tried to make coffee. Well, I did. Went to go make coffee for her, and we use a mocha pot. It takes 5 minutes typically to make coffee. Fine. I put it on this burner, and literally, if you have like any little bit of wind, you can see the heat doesn't rise. And so this thing sat on there for about 15 minutes doing nothing. So if you want to boil water, make sure you bring something like a jet boil. Otherwise, you probably won't be able to boil water if there's a little bit of a breeze. It's not good.
Picacho Peak State Park.
We've had it for about 3 months now.
Yeah.
We've done a little over 3,000 miles, about 12 nights in it. I'm going to go over some stuff here, pros, cons, what I like, what I don't, and just give you a good dose of my brain. So start off with the tongue, the hitch, the jack. So basic tongue, the jack it's okay. It works, except depending upon trying to level it, this is completely bottomed out and I can't go any further. And it's pretty level, but if I use some leveling blocks on the wheels, I'm sure it would be easier to have more range, but it works okay. My understanding, some of these have been changed depending upon when the production time was for these, but this is the Ram Jack, 1,500 pound, 1,500 lift capacity trailer jack in China. But overall, hooking up to the truck, real simple. I actually use bungee cords though too to keep things kind of tightened up so that things aren't going everywhere. The basket's pretty nice to have.
Do we have a 23 basket?
So yeah, this is a basket from a 23. The 22s had just an aluminum frame. Even though this is a 22, it's kind of a mix match of some of the changes between 22 to 23 that Encore made in this model. Full size spare. I mean, it is what it is. The mount's decent. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but maybe over time there could be some sort of fatigue. Don't know, haven't tested it that much. For the propane system, They provide you a 20-pound tank. It's a good tank, the mount's decent. But we have had issues with the regulator where we had, on our first shakedown, we had leaks, and I had to remove the line from the regulator to the tank and get these threads to seal up. On the fly, on the road, I'm having to just use some blue Loctite to seal them. Haven't touched it yet. Gonna call Encore to talk about getting a replacement regulator and lines to do it right, but in the meantime, it is working. 7-pin hookup, so it does have electronic brakes. They do work pretty well. I use a Red Arc, I think it's Tow Pro Elite, so it's proportional, so the harder you brake, the more it'll push into these brakes. It does work really well. I've had good braking with it, so overall it tows really well. We tow it with a 2020 Toyota Tacoma. It's a little modified, but
just a little.
But there's only like a 6,700 pound towing capacity on the truck. This thing's about 3,000 gross. They said the axle's actually a 3,500 pound axle, even though they say it's only rated, the sticker says 2,500, but they've assured me that it is actually a 3,500 axle, and they just underrated it. So overall, the gross weight of this thing will never exceed 3,000 to 3,500 pounds. It's good for small children. This camper has an all aluminum frame construction, similar to like an Intech, but I've looked at some of the welds here. You can see welds where there's a joint here. They've just ground it down for cosmetics, but if they did not grind down things on the bottom, and so if you get underneath it and take a look, there are welds. Being aluminum, you need to TIG weld all this. It takes a little bit more skill than your typical MIG welder, but there's some joints, some welds in there that are definitely, someone put way too much heat into them. I assume they're okay, but they could be questionable. But then there's some welds that were properly TIG welded and look pretty, and I'm not sure what the story is on the construction of the frame at the time, but I've seen better. It's got a warranty though, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, these welds they had way too much heat. I work in a metal fabrication shop. I'm not a welder, but my father was. I also work in a fabrication shop, so I can tell you right now, these are extremely novice to high heat welds, especially. Hang on. Especially right there.
One thing I do like about it is the outside storage. They did do a good design of trying to utilize every little bit of space. Inside here is where you kind of keep, your hitch up and all your 30 amp cable. We keep our chairs in here. It's big enough. The battery compartment's at the bottom. It's good storage. It's useful. It's lockable. It is a plus on that one. For the battery compartment, you have to try and get this out of here without tearing out the little plastic piece. It's a little tight, it's a little cumbersome, it's not super high speed to get into. Just put it back there. So we have two Renogy 100 amp hour batteries. They're lithium with the heaters built in. We've got them running in parallel. So we got 200 amp hours at 12 volt. There's also a relatively inexpensive 700 watt inverter and 30 amp solar charger from Renogy that we use. Those will probably get upgraded later. All right, and to talk about these batteries and the trays, this did actually come from the dealer with just one tray. Encore was nice enough to send out a second one for free, but the straps that the trays come with will not work for these batteries. I can't imagine they'd really work for any battery, to be honest. They just were not high quality. I went on Amazon, grabbed some of these friction battery straps here. I tried a few different ones, returned what didn't work. I'll try and throw a link in, I guess, for someone if they need some. But overall, battery system's been good. We'll go and show you the solar, but their pre-wired solar hookups are actually not wired into this right now. I went straight from my panels to the charger and then to the batteries on this one. The inverter's in there. It's just a 700 watt one. I just kind of threw it in when I bought the battery so we had something to use when we're off grid. But I did speak to Encore. I tried to get some wiring diagrams or some information on, you know, I basically just need to splice this into the system, maybe put a switch on it so I can turn it on or off. Haven't been able to get a hold of the electrician, so I'm going to try that again when we do talk. As far as the solar goes, I did talk to him. They gave me some pretty decent support. Rich actually talked to me specifically, and he did 2 100 watt Renogy solar panels. They're hard mounted on the overhead rack, and then those come in here. We actually, I drilled 2 1-inch holes with hole saw, used the Blue Sea pucks, and was able to run the cables in. And I'm pretty sure it's waterproof. I haven't had any leaks yet. And then that runs in directly to the charge controller into the batteries, and it's working. It's 200 watts. Will keep everything kind of topped off if you have things minimal for just sitting all the time. You know, maybe the battery just being used for like the fridge, but if you're really like trying to use this every day, don't expect 200 watts of solar to do a whole lot for you other than just keep things topped off. All right, now we're gonna talk about the awnings. This has been kind of like one of my biggest pet peeves about this thing. I feel like these things just shouldn't have even been included because it really takes away from the experience. This primary awning here is essentially at this point has failed completely. We'll put in some video after this kind of showing those failures, but I understand there's, you know, issues with supply chain and things of that nature, but this one is just so bad that it really overshadows a lot of the positive things about this when you're dealing with this particular awning. We moved to the awning in the back. It's actually been great. It's the exact same awning, but because it's smaller. That's fine. The awnings are constructed to handle a certain amount of, you know, weight, things like that. But this awning's smaller. It's this, all the materials are exactly the same as this one. These materials that are used are fine and adequate for this size of awning. For this, not adequate. It's just low quality. This one's been fine. It's gonna get replaced anyway, but I would have preferred it just didn't even come with it. You could have picked up your own choice from the dealer or something like that. Put it on yourself. So moving on to the driver's side of the unit, we've added an OVS privacy shower, which has been really nice. We're going to go with OVS for the new awning too. We just haven't done it yet. On this side is the shower port. It works pretty well. I mean, it really does a good job for what it is. I mean, I'm not out here taking showers with it, but we use it for hosing off the dogs, hosing off our feet. You know, if we go to the beach or something like that when we're not in Arizona. Behind this is the water feed. There's some info. We'll have some other video and content for that already that we'll add in. The fenders, they're fine. They're basically like training wheels. You just use them if you need them for feelers, but they're not. They're mounted straight to the fiberglass, so you can't step on them. They clearly say no step. I just step on the wheel itself. It's fine. I know there's a ladder that they make that goes here, but even then, the privacy shower is more important to me being here than having a ladder access to a rooftop roof rack that may or may not really use. So with the hookups, few pet peeves. It's at, you know, 30 amp works great. I have an adapter to go to 15 or 20 amp also, so in case we're in a spot that doesn't have 30 amp service, we can still run the 120 system. This works okay. I mean,
Yeah.
It's all tight. But, down here you have your cable hookup. When I spoke to Encore about it, they said there was something along the lines of a powered unit for it. And I don't plan on using it, so I'm not really concerned. There's the solar hookup here, but this is literally just straight to the battery. If you were to hook it up with a pre-existing wire, there's nothing in line as far as a charge controller. So if you want to use those, you need to have a charge controller outside with the panel, like he provides with the Survival series. But it's not hard mounted, so you got to deploy it each time. Not for me. The exhaust for the heater, we barely even use the heater, to be honest. We'll go over that inside, but this is too low. This is only like 19 inches high, and if you want to ford through some water, like, it's too low. You're gonna flood this thing with this exhaust here. So maybe that should have been considered. If all this could be moved up, that would be ideal, but I know there's other restrictions too.
He's so peaceful. He's got the heater also, and wrapped up.
So back in the kitchen here, this was actually the main thing that drew me to this unit when we first saw it.
Same.
But there's been a few things now where I'm like, yeah, maybe I should have thought about something different in that case. But first we'll talk about the refrigerator. This has been kind of a sore thing. The mounts are okay. It's pretty sturdy. We've had to add this child-proof lock mechanism so that because it will just come open because there's no lock on it. It's just a standard 12-volt mini fridge, so
Something you'd have in your dorm room.
yeah, I mean, if you run a 12-volt system in some capacity.
True.
I'm not sure this is, I don't know how well this is designed to be used in this scenario, but inside of it, because you can't open the door all the way, you can't get any of this stuff out without actually removing this mount, which I did at one point, and moving this in a position to actually get things out and clean it. Defrost tray, none of that stuff will come out without it. I even tried to remove it and switch the hinge over here. Can't do it because you can't get the whole unit out because the connector is inside the wall and there's not enough slack to get the refrigerator completely out without removing the wall inside. I'm not going that way. I'm not putting that much effort into this. Not right now. So the fridge, it works. It's just it definitely has its quirks and features. Sink's actually been pretty great. It works well. You got your two patterns. Comes off. Can't like get it much further out here. So if you wanted to like fill something out here, can't really do that. But the spring mechanism works okay. You have to really push it up in there to keep it
Secured.
secured in there, but you know, it's a faucet.
It's a better faucet than most. And it really, this is really what sold me.
Yeah, and the
Even
sink has
though it
actually
has such issues now.
been nice too. It is pretty heavy duty.
Yeah, it's a good size. It's a good size sink.
The only real issue I've had is underneath here where the P-trap is. Inside this is a membrane that lets water flow back, but keeps things from coming back up. So I don't know, backflow membrane kind of thing. But sometimes it leaks from here. I took all this apart and used Teflon tape, and there's 2 O-rings in here, made sure everything was clean and seated and sealed, and it still leaks here. So it's something we'll have to address at some point here because it is annoying to have dirty gray water just leaking. The overhead storage is nice. We need to do some stuff to kind of create more organization inside here because things kind of get tossed around. But you know, like most people know, we're looking into this thing. It's all integrated into the frame, so it's real sturdy. It does add structural rigidity to the trailer. Storage back here is pretty good. We obviously use it. Again, we're probably going to do some things to try and add a little more organization in the sense of like drawers or
Bins.
cubes or something back here. Also want to utilize some of this space and put some things on here that are shallow, maybe molly or just some hooks, something so that we can utilize this space for hanging thin things and still be able to just close it and go. We added a little backsplash. It's cheapy. Didn't do a great job, but it adds a little bit of pizzazz to everything. We like it. Moving on to cooking. The stove, it seemed nice when we were looking at it, but now performance-wise, I'm just not super happy with it. Hence why the old jet boil's out over here.
We also have 2 Eureka stoves.
Yeah, and we have no problems with those. The main thing with this thing, no igniter, so I have to use a lighter to light the fuel, and that's just seems like just something overlooked by the manufacturer perhaps. But the heat output from these is really great. We tried to boil water. It really takes a lot of time versus the jet boil. Today I tried to make coffee, and we'll throw probably some video in about that. I couldn't do it on this. I had to pull out the jet boil, and this took a few minutes. I spent 15 minutes with just nothing because there was a slight breeze.
5 miles per hour breeze.
So does it work? Yeah. Is it great? No. But microwave, we've only used it like once. We considered even replacing it and putting something else in this space, but it works. It's fine. It's a camper microwave. Nothing fancy, nothing special. We just got to remember to bring plastic bowls so that we can actually microwave
everything we
things.
have is titanium, so that's not going to work.
Yeah, it does.
And that's short-sighted on our end.
But overall, the kitchen is, we like it. We do.
I do like it better than a slide-out type kitchen, and there's many reasons why, but...
And the fact that we can just, deploy it real quick and close it up is nice. We did add the child safety lock to the outside too, because this has saved us once before in Oregon. But it works well. When you close it, you just got to really make sure that you push it in all the way so that it engages this upper latch. Otherwise, it may come open.
And we have some content about that we filmed yesterday.
The lights are fine. Cabinet lights. This porch light is actually like the reverse light and gets doubled as just a porch light. It's kind of in your eyes, and it would be really nice if they had just put some like amber lights or something over here. It may be done some amber reds inside. We'll talk more about that when we get inside. Fridge is on its own switch too, so that's nice. You can turn it off when you're not using it. Water pump has its own power source, so you can turn it on and off. And then fresh water tank level. Bottle opener. It actually is. It's a good bottle opener. It does get used. So overall, the kitchen's great. We'll talk about the speakers inside, but the speakers suck, and they should just not even have included a stereo with this thing. All right, so we're gonna move inside now. We have a little rug we finally got, so that's nice to have. We'll probably get another.
With dogs, especially.
Yeah.
Feet.
We have 2 dogs. We have a small 25-pound Frenchie, and we have an 85-pound pit bull. They sleep in here with us, but they keep us warm.
We bought the camper and then got the second dog.
Yeah. I'm gonna move around to the other side. So moving on to the inside here, everything is honestly really great. There was a few pet peeves, a few things that we didn't like. We had to make some changes with, but overall it's really comfortable. It fits both of us and our 2 dogs, and we're comfortable enough. It's much better than a tent, so I will give it that.
Absolutely.
So
we did move the fire extinguisher because it was over here.
Yeah.
And that's just not.
It was just hitting
not
your leg every night.
Every
You couldn't
night.
sleep
I was
for the
all
first few
scratched
nights,
up from it.
Now it's up here. I just moved it. Not a big deal. Overall, I mean, everything's just fiberglass, carpet. Storage is good. Up top in this storage, we really just have a lot of junk that needs to get organized. There's actually nothing up here right now, but this is
junk.
normally where we throw like our hoodies and
bags
and whatever that we get in at the end of the night. These little trays, they work okay. I mean, they hold a few things like your phone. And then it's got these little hooks on it that
the edges are pretty sharp, so
yeah,
if you are reaching for your glasses or your phone in the middle of the night, just go easy, because
you can scratch some stuff up.
You can scratch yourself up or your belongings.
Over here, the windows, I mean, these work fine. I actually haven't had any issues with these. They're a little slow to retract though sometimes. I mean, windows are fine. It's standard camper stuff. It's not anything specialized off-road. It is standard camping stuff. It's camper, you know, components, but yeah. So apparently this guy was coming loose. It's like it just clicks back in. Well, I know it's a quick disconnect in a way for emergency, but you know, it might have just rattled loose from
the non-off-roading we have done so far.
Right. So on the front, the closet, it is very nice to have, except when it originally came, it opened the other way, the other direction. So I removed the door itself, flipped it around, changed the orientation. I think they come this way now from Encore, but it's something I had to do myself because this is an earlier model. Down here is the intake for the heater, and here are the vents for the heater. These are kind of adjustable in a way, like you can try to change the direction of it, but we don't even use the heater anymore because we now just use this 350 watt electric heater. And as long as we're on grid, which most places, most time we are, it works great because the propane heater is too much for this little camper. It's
too much for us, especially with 2 dogs.
Yeah.
Providing body warmth. And we also live in Arizona, so it doesn't get super, super cold. If you're in Montana in the winter, you might need that.
It was 30 out last night, and we were fine with this little heater in our body heat. So the big thing is these originally came with 8,000 BTU heaters, which I think is probably a pretty decent match for this size. This one has a 12,000 BTU, and then now the newest ones, they come with a 16,000 BTU. So it comes with twice the heat output that it originally came with. Probably won't use the heater unless it were off grid for one and we need it. Thermostat is also not, it's not digital, it's something special, so it can be difficult to keep control of the heat.
It also, the mechanism is hard, so you think you're gonna break it when you first turn it on.
Yeah, every time you turn the on-off switch is very rigid. And it feels flimsy because it's plastic and you're afraid you're gonna break it. One of the things I want to talk about too, I'm not even gonna raise this up. I mean, it raises, they're not gonna do that. We're just gonna leave them down. When we bought the thing and took it home, these were toes. They melted. And I think these ones even have 2. I'm not gonna take it apart because I don't want to deal with it right now. But these will probably have to be replaced again.
Yeah, sitting on the lot in the Arizona sun.
This door has actually
summer.
melted right here. When we picked this up, this is how it was. And it's cosmetic to me, so I'm not super concerned about replacing the door under warranty. But it did melt from the Arizona heat. I don't know where it was located in Tom's Camperland. They had direct sun, whatever, but either way, when it comes to high temperatures, I don't know. We'll see how it holds up in the long run. A TV would go here. I might put a television in. If I do, it'll probably just be a 120 volt because the Jensen 12 volts are really expensive and I don't think they are worth it. We got phones, so we don't really use our TVs all that much.
Particularly like Jensen products either.
Yeah. So,
which is what this is.
We'll talk about the radio real quick. It's basically a clock. And it kind of keeps us up because the light coming off of it is white.
All of these are so bright.
So yeah, and then onto the switches, they're all blue, including these little overhead lights here. They're blue, and then they go white. They're very bright, and then your standard lighting inside, cabinet lighting, it's all white. I really think a really great change to this thing would be if they did a white-red combo on these with the double switch on the panel, and then get switches that are not blue backlight but red backlight, because biologically blue wakes you up, red puts you to sleep. So when you're trying to sleep in the night, you have all this blue light everywhere, it keeps you up. So we're going to create some sort of cover for that. Probably just
Velcro and then put like a piece of felt down so it covers it.
Just something. I mean, it's because the stereo, it's terrible. There's no reason to even have it. We use a little Bose.
Oh, it charges my phone.
It does, but there's also USB ports up here. So on the switches, you have your main light. Works great. Would be even better if it was a double switch for white red, but cabinet lights works good. Use those most of the time. Porch light, curbside. So this is the side light. It can go white or it can go amber. We use amber all the time because the whites just attracts bugs. The underglows are great. I love them. It's nice to have. I'll even run the amber porch lights and the underglows when we're driving through like bad weather, to add extra visibility to the camper on the road. Couple USB ports, nothing special. You've got your 4 switches here for the pre-wired outlets at all 4 corners. I'm sure if you're looking at this video, you already know about these, and you'll get more information on that from Encore, but we haven't really used them yet. We don't have the thing hooked up. In here, the fans are great. This Max fan, we use this pretty much exclusively. It does have an AC unit. We've tested it when we first got it. It's very loud, but I'm sure when it's 120 degrees out,
which it does get here.
Well, yeah, it does get in Arizona. It will be a welcome addition when we're got hookups. So not gonna hate on it, but it's definitely very loud.
Always have noticed this clearance issue and always kind of worried that something will leak through there.
Yeah,
so far it has not, but it's just
takes a little bit of headroom too when you're over here, so you might ding your head on it. It's been good though. And we mounted the remote for the fan up here so that we can run it. That came just loose when we bought it, so I just mounted it up there with the rest of the controls. So one of the biggest things though that I do love about this thing is the bed. Like, Encore did do a good job with putting a good bed in this thing, and I know they tout about that, and I agree, it's nice.
And it does turn into a futon, although we do not use it.
Yeah, I never really do that because then you have to take the sheets off, and it just becomes kind of a pain. But we have queen size sheets on it. It works great. We put a little cover in between this.
It's a topper.
A topper. Yeah. Just a blanket.
You can feel slightly the ridges where it separates and folds up. You can feel it a little bit, but with an initial topper, I don't think that'll be an issue at all.
Yeah, if we put like a foam on top of this, I think it'll be great. I mean, I worry about if we go too thick.
Right, you won't be able to open the door.
To clear this. Would have been nice if this was mounted just, there's an inch of space here. Would have been nice if they'd utilize that inch to bring it up a little bit, but overall, I mean, it's good storage.
It is good storage. I'm gonna open it back up just so people can see how big. We have a hat in here and a bag.
Because we're only now beginning to actually use this space because
it was
it's easily
too
accessible.
inconvenient at first.
Before this, it was very hard to get in and out of anything.
Especially with 2 dogs laying in here.
You couldn't get to anything from this side because when it would open, it would come to here. So
you have to go inside.
But now this actually makes this usable. Condensation though. So last thing, condensation. This thing is small. You put 4 bodies in it, it builds it up. There are little channels and stuff and these windows and whatnot that are supposed to help channel that out. That's typical camper kind of stuff, but I did find some condensation underneath the mattress when I was cleaning this out before this trip. We did 9 days in this thing on the road.
2,700 miles?
Yeah, we went up Pacific Coast Highway, Oregon, Reno, Vegas, back to Phoenix, and there was definitely some condensation that built up extra during that time, but we vent it when we can, pop these windows, kick on that max fan, and it
Clears out pretty good.
It does pretty good job. I love it. It's way better than tent camping. Are there some things that could be done better? Yes. Is this like an off-road, go anywhere kind of camper? No, it is not.
With the weld on the bottom alone, I would not trust it going on anything more than just a dirt road that has been mildly graded.
And the ground clearance honestly isn't anything special.
No.
I mean,
I don't know what Sasquatch certified means, but
I mean, we took it down one dirt road just
Arco
to
Santi.
get to Arco Sante, and I had to go really slow. It was kind of
Bouncing and jumping around everywhere.
It was not happy, especially through like corrugations and stuff. I've talked to them about maybe lifts and different tires, some different options and stuff, but I don't think I'll put the effort into that with this particular unit. But overall, it's a great unit if you want to just get on the road and quick and easily drop it and get in.
Maximo does enjoy his camper life a lot more than tent life. And our other dog, Hank, he's not with us today because he is having some obedience and fun playtime with his aunties and cousins. He doesn't know what tent life is, so he did really great in here, and it keeps us all warm and safe and protected. So that's definitely a huge upgrade from what we were operating with prior to the ROG. Beautiful Sonoran Desert. Definitely blessed to call this place home. I know it's chilly for us. It's in the 40s. Got down to like 30s last night. Which, if you live in the desert and you're used to the heat, it's pretty cold, but not that cold in comparison to lots of other places in the United States or Canada.
So if you're not good at backing up, you can just drag it over and put it on.
Right.
Or if you get in a hairy situation, you need to take it off and do something to change which direction you're going. And all this stuff is nicely corroded from the Nevada winter salt on the roads. this over, under, to the handle. And this stuff doesn't drag around and move as much. The bungee around the chain and such, just to keep everything up off the ground. I mean, it's a bungee cord, so it'll break before any of this other stuff will. Chains off the ground so it will cause sparks and it will cause wildfires,
which is a really big
which is a
problem.
big issue here.